26 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. This is Jason Finelli, your gaming expert for Fox PHL The Gambler. Notice today I didn't say video gaming, because today we're doing something a little bit different because of what is happening in the city this weekend. If you have never heard of Magic the Gathering, one of the longest running tabletop card games of all time, and you happen to be around the convention center with nothing to do, you're in luck. MagicCon 2023 is happening at our Pennsylvania Convention Center down there in Center City, Philadelphia, just past City Hall. And it'll be 3 days of games and panels and vendors and all kinds of stuff centered around this game, which is now in its 31st year of being in existence. That's a long time to be playing one card game, but it's here and it's juggernaut. And it's going to be a fantastic weekend. So we will go over in the second segment and third segment what the game is, where it stands right now, and what you'll be able to do at this convention this weekend, whether you're a hardcore fan or just figuring things out for the first time ever. And if you haven't played Magic the Gathering at all or in a while, you might want to, get yourself up. You might want to learn some things. And usually when you want to teach yourself some things or learn some new things about a subject, you go back to college, you go back to school. So we here at Cheesesteaks and Controllers have gotten some office hours with a pretty good professor of one Tolarian Community College. Professor Brian is here with us today to talk about Magic the Gathering, where it is now and where it is going. Professor, how are you, sir?
Oh, hello. Thank you so much for having me here today.
I should have left a better way for you to say the "oh hello." I keep forgetting the catchphrase.
I do it every time. In fact, the fact that you didn't give me a good entrance for it and it's awkward is even better, because it's supposed to be an awkward and uncomfortable, cheesy. Oh, hello! I didn't see you there on my computer screen in our Discord chat.
Hey, don't be giving away the secrets of the trade here.
Oh, right.
So let's talk now about where Magic the Gathering is right now. Obviously, 30th anniversary celebration did not go great. Now, granted, I've only been back in Magic for a couple of months, but that was obvious even to those who were non-Magic players. Just, what was it you said? 60 fake Magic cards for $1,000, I believe was the hook from your videos, yes?
Yeah, and I think that right there is why this caught fire, is that people who don't play Magic the Gathering could understand what a stupid thing this was, that celebrating 30 years of this trading card game, whose booster packs are $4 at your local game store, the company decides to make an extremely limited printing of 60 collectible, but not actually legally playable, so just collector pieces. In other words, fake Magic the Gathering cards, because what good's a Magic the Gathering card you can't play? That's no good. I want to play with my Magic cards, and it's going to be just 60 random ones from their early year, and it'll cost $1,000. You don't have to play Magic the Gathering to know that's a terrible, terrible idea. Magic players were upset, and the larger community sympathized with us, and so it really caught fire. And I guess if that's when you came back to the game, wow, what an event, what a controversy to come back to the game during. Glad you stuck around.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. So my first taste back was actually back in September. I went with some friends to so I think it was Dominaria United pre-release in September.
Good set. Great set.
I didn't play. I just watched them play. But then slowly but surely they convinced me to come back. My first Magic purchase, and this is going to be our first big topic of discussion, I think, in 15 years was a Secret Lair. Believe it or not.
Right.
You have been pretty open about your feelings on certain Secret Lairs. It was Street Fighter specifically.
Certain Secret Lairs. Now, I want to set the record straight. And for those who may not know, a Secret Lair is Magic the Gathering selling special Magic cards that are playable, unlike their anniversary edition, that are real Magic cards that you can play with. But instead of going through the local game stores where we normally shop for and buy our Magic products, they're going to directly sell them to you, the customer, for a limited time only. It's like if you're a sneakerhead and you know those sneaker drops are,
Yep,
I don't know, maybe they do it with other things too, but they'll say, okay, for the month of January, we've got several special secret layers. They've got art that you'll not usually find on a Magic card, templating, maybe that's cool and stylistic, or in the case of Street Fighter characters as Magic cards. You can buy it this month. That's the only time you can get it. It's supposedly, though not promised, to be gone forever after that. And I don't hate them, but I'm a little uneasy about some of them, and there's a lot of them. And the fact that I'm uneasy is not made any more easy by the fact they do so many of these now. They apparently sell very well and make a lot of money. But I do want to say I don't hate secret layers. I'm not against them. I just kind of I would be so much more cautious with them. I would do so fewer of them, and they do so many of them. So I turn it into a bit of a joke on my YouTube channel where I'm overwhelmed by just how many they do, and I can't handle it, and I can barely evaluate it. And maybe that's what they want.
The Yule log from your channel this year was just you
Yes.
reading all of the different secret layers. There was, what, 158?
Yep.
Was that the number?
I can't even remember. I did two. I did one where I read every secret layer ever, and it's only been around 2 years or so.
Yeah.
And it was a huge list. They've done so many of them. And that's actually my problem with secret layers, is not that they do special art. I have no problem with special art. I do have thoughts on them bringing in IPs like Street Fighter and The Walking Dead and Stranger Things into Magic the Gathering, but that's not secret layer. That's this whole other, again, recent thing. I just wish they didn't do so many of them, and they do very, very many of them. It's hard to keep track. It's hard to evaluate. It feels like you're being just deluged with advertisements for secret layers, and so I incorporate that into my reviews, where underneath the humor, I'm trying very hard to offer my viewers a good evaluation of, is this product right for you? At the end, that's your decision to make. Which was the secret layer you bought?
Street Fighter.
There you go. Okay. Got you back in. That's great. Did you build a commander deck with them, or?
Not yet. My first commander was actually Negan. From the
cool.
Walking Dead.
Oh God. Oh yes. Okay. Wow. So you're okay. Well,
yes.
You know what? I may disagree. That one I disagree with maybe, but you know what? I will always play a game of Commander with you if you sit down at my table. And my objections with The Walking Dead had a lot more to do with them selling exclusive cards for a brief period of time than The Walking Dead, which I did have other objections to. But at the end of the day, I will always play Magic the Gathering with you, and I really hope we get a game soon.
I do. I appreciate that. Now, my question is, when it comes to introducing IP, is it the IP they're introducing? Because in your Walking Dead video, you talked about how The Walking Dead is not for children, but Magic the Gathering is supposed to be a game for children. Is it just that, or is it just the idea of bringing in outside IP in general?
It's a little bit of both. So Walking Dead was an interesting case because you're right. It's listen, I've got a small child of my own, and I would not necessarily let him watch The Walking Dead. He's 10 years old. Now, Magic the Gathering is, and it's so arbitrary. It says 13 and up. Would I let my kid watch The Walking Dead at 13? Probably not. It's probably still. I would definitely have a long conversation with his mother about that one. Sure. But it did feel not proper for Magic the Gathering setting. So Street Fighter, as wild and weird as that is, isn't something where that feels inappropriate for the large all ages group of, or at least young teenager and up group of Magic the Gathering players. Walking Dead, now the cards themselves weren't gory, but when you literally have Negan with a baseball bat and Glenn, and I picture a kid Googling that on YouTube to see who these characters are, that's where I did have a problem. And Magic had previously had, you know, I mean, it has its fair share of gore. It has some really gory cards. It has cards I wouldn't show my 9-year-old kid. There's you look at some of those cards in Magic the Gathering, there's a lot of gore. I don't know. It was also that they were doing it for the first time. They were doing it through exclusivity. You had to buy it. Only available, very short time. You'll never get the cards again. There won't be Magic, IP equivalents. I stated my objections in my video, and I also emphasized that even though I objected to how they were doing it, and with Wizards of the Coast often is the case, it's not what they do, but how they do it.
Right.
You know, like I said, 30th anniversary. If it wasn't $1,000, if it was, you know, these packs were, you know, $6.99 at my local game store, and it was for everyone, I'd have a lot less problem with this, even though they were fake cards. It's like, oh, okay, go have some fun. We'll go down memory lane. And, you know, it's a little bit more expensive than a regular pack. It's still not great, but it's often the way Wizards of the Coast does things. So I stated my objections, but at the end of the day, I do always want to make sure that even if I don't like a product or I have a problem with what WotC is doing, Magic is about the gathering, which you're about to have in Philly, a beautiful, wonderful event people should attend. Have a good time, check it out. But I will always play Magic with you, and I hope other people realize that too, that even if they didn't like the Walking Dead cards, it's like, yeah, but come on, sit down, let's shuffle up and play, let's get a game. Magic's about us sitting around having fun.
Shuffle Up and Play, by the way, being his live you watch a game of Magic, like a Let's Play sort of thing where they sit down and they play. So that was good product placement there. Nice work.
I'm really good at the plug. I can't afford advertising on this station, so I decided to agree to the interview, and then I just said I'm going to plug my stuff, like my YouTube channel, Tolarian Community College on YouTube, where you can watch that Let's Play of Magic the Gathering and find product evaluations. I just find very subtle. You wouldn't even notice some ways to integrate that into the interview.
I should actually also say, just hit 800,000 subscribers.
I know. I was the first Magic the Gathering YouTuber to hit 100,000, which you get a little plaque from YouTube, and I'm on track to be the first to 1 million. I'm racing. I got a few folks behind me, but you know, I'm very excited. 800,000, 200 to go to 1 million.
It's a huge feat. I think mine has like 10, and they're all my family. So you're doing a great job. So one more quick secret lair question, then I have another topic I'd love to get talk to you about. So the next secret lair I bought after Street Fighter was another video game that I play a lot of, and that's Fortnite. Now, they did something a little bit differently. They put Fortnite on the cards, but they adapted existing cards.
Right. Better. Much better. I have less to complain about, even though I am a cranky old man who will make long, groan-worthy rants against what these kids are doing with their forts and their knights. And what do they know? In my day, you had a little Italian man, and he'd eat a mushroom, and that's what we liked. And now I don't know what the kids are doing, but the way they incorporated these Fortnite cards into Magic was a much better way than with Walking Dead, or even I would say Street Fighter, where they were exclusive cards that you can't get anywhere else, and they're original cards, and so that forces you to have to take them. With Fortnite, they took existing Magic cards and they created what we might call a skin, a Fortnite version of the existing card. I don't have to have the Fortnite card if I want to get a card that mechanically does what that card does. There's existing Magic cards. I prefer that system. It makes it so there's very little for me to complain about, which is quite a feat. And so I liked that a lot more, even though I don't like Fortnite. It's like, what's my problem with this? I don't have a problem with it. Right. Whereas I can say, hey, well, what if I want to play with a card that does what Blanca does, but I don't want to play with Blanca. I don't got a choice here. And so that's why the Fortnite system is preferable.
Seems they've gotten the message, though. Universes Within starts in the next set.
Yeah, I know. It's almost like criticism is an important thing for keeping a game like Magic the Gathering healthy, that critics such as myself do serve an important role, and that we are actually lovers of the game and working to improve it and not the enemy. We just are offering our criticism, both positive and negative, to try and get the best possible game for everyone involved.
That was as subtle as your plugs right there.
Yeah.
So I'm
not invited to Magic Philly or anything. WotC didn't invite me there. I'm not welcome there, because I don't like certain Anyway, that's another video. Let's go on with the interview there.
That's another interview. So I want to also talk to you about something that you have had a lot of videos that I've recently watched about, and that's the reserve list.
Yes.
So catch me up on this. So there's a list of 600 cards, something like that will never be reprinted from older sets. Is that how it works? What is the point of that?
So this is the other famous or infamous thing in Magic the Gathering, which is a very, very long time ago, literally over 2 decades or so ago. They made a promise because they had overprinted certain cards in a reprint set and destroyed the values. And there are collectors who enjoy the value of Magic cards. They collect them as collector's pieces. Sure. Cards get reprinted sometimes, and that'll affect value. But Wizards of the Coast, 20 years or so ago, over reprinted certain cards and destroyed their value, and people were upset. And so without thinking this is a game that's going to go on 30 years, they said, hey, look, we're going to make a promise. Here's a list of cards that we'll never reprint. And that way you can be safe in collecting them as collector's pieces. And we make you this promise. Now, unfortunately, many of the cards on that list, not all of them, not most of them, but many of them are what some people consider critical game pieces, at the very least to play certain formats like Legacy, Vintage certainly, but definitely even Legacy, where these are cards that you kind of need to play, and they will not reprint them ever. So the cards are worth thousands of dollars. In the case of some of the vintage cards, even more than that. And it does give Magic the Gathering a kind of allure where people will say, wow, look at this Mox Emerald. This is I don't even know right now, depending on the version, if it's an alpha, beta, or unlimited, could be $5,000 or more, $10,000 for this card here that's on the reserve list. And it creates this mystique, which of course it's only because they've promised never to reprint this very powerful card. And players kind of would like them to reprint them because players, once again, would like to play Magic the Gathering. Mm-hmm. Collectors are mixed. Some people say that the pieces are so old and there's so few of them that even if they reprinted a new version of that card, the originals would still maintain a lot of their value simply being this very few in number original card from 20, 30 years ago. And other collectors are like, no, I want it to never be reprinted. It's a bit of a debate, but players want to play. They can't afford to play because an Underground Sea is $800 and you need 4 of them and then 4 of this other land to play Legacy. It's outrageous. And so it's definitely a hot topic in Magic, where I think the majority of Magic players would love to see the reserve list go. Wizards of the Coast, the company, says, we promised we'd never reprint them. We won't reprint them. What are you going to do?
So you think they have like some sort of like, in case of emergency, press this button and it's, and it's reserved masters or reserve masters?
Yeah. That's my theory, and a lot of other people think that this is the last stopgap measure for we're losing money or we need to make money before we go under or something, because the one day that they say, all right, we're going to reprint all those cards, that's just money in a bottle if they do it right. And that maybe if they're already feeling that they've destroyed their game or something and Magic is dying and they want to strip it down and sell it off, the last thing they'll do is they'll make, reserve list masters and hopefully, understand how to price it so people can actually buy it, but you could still charge a lot of money for that and it would fly off the shelves theoretically. And then they take that last bit of money and sell the game to Asmodee or something like that.
Yeah. I feel like, just to loop back to where we started, I feel like the 30th anniversary could have solved both problems, right?
They were testing the waters. I think it was, again, like I've often said, that I don't think, obviously Wizards of the Coast does a lot of things right because we love Magic and they make the game. And there's a lot of smart, wonderful people at Wizards that are doing a lot of smart, wonderful things because we love this game. But then they just go and do these things that are like, I often say they have foot and mouth syndrome, but they really stumble on things, and they really stumbled on that 30th anniversary in probably one of their biggest stumbles, I would say.
Sure.
And I think that could have been, as you say, a way to sell reserve list cards without selling reserve list cards. And if they had just not been as greedy as possible with it, they might have succeeded, but they just were as greedy as possible. And I think that's what messes them up. And there's a lot of other areas where they are just like, I know a corporation's got to make money, but tone it down a little bit, please.
Sure. So let's get you out of here on something a little bit lighter. Let's talk about you playing Magic right now. What's your favorite format at the moment?
Oh, it's so hard to play a format. See, that's the best thing about Magic. If anyone listening doesn't play Magic, Magic isn't one game. It's a lot of different games that use this card pool. It's kind of like Go Fish and Poker and Gin Rummy are all using a pack of playing cards, but they're different games. And Magic is kind of like that too, with different formats. Definitely right now, the most popular format is Commander. I certainly love it. I also love oddball formats like Pauper, where you play using only common cards, because you can have decks that only cost $20 and they're top tier decks. That's a lot of fun. I used to be a big fan of Modern. They recently did some changes in how Modern gets its cards, and it's still a lot of fun, but it wasn't the format I fell in love with. Been having a lot of good days in Pioneer lately as well. I love Magic. I play all the different formats of Magic. I even have a Legacy deck. The only format I don't really play is Vintage, but I would say if I had to pick a favorite format, it was probably be can I say a three-way tie between Modern, Commander, and Pauper? They all scratch different itches. Okay. They all scratch really different itches.
Yeah, I've only done Commander really so far. I haven't really gotten into Pauper. Is enticing to me, and Modern.
Pauper's fun.
Modern will probably take a little bit, but I'd like to get into that too. So Commander, since we both agree on that, what are you running right now? What do you play?
Oh, well, I mean, it's so addictive. I have, 10 different decks. I usually in Commander like decks that are a little bit more aggro-based rather than combo-based. I have a lot of those strategies from my Cassetto Simic deck that's a little bit more of a Voltron strategy to I think I have several Merfolk variations, because those are really fun decks to play, where you just get a bunch of Merfolk out on the field. They all help each other out. Or even I have a Sig River Cutthroat deck that is another just equip swords to Sig and swing in for the kill.
Cool.
There's so many different ways to play, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm playing Negan, like I said, and then my second one is an Olivia Mobilized for War vampire deck, because
nice.
My oldest daughter's Olivia, and I wanted to include her
Oh, that's sweet. That's sweet. Yeah, that's a really good card too, and a very strong commander. I have lost to it many a time.
Yeah, it's not quite there yet, not quite ready for open play, but I'll get there soon. Professor,
yes,
thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate you coming and talking Magic with me. It's a shame we won't see you here in Philly, but hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to shuffle up and play together. Looking forward to everything you have coming out soon. Since we're recording it before it comes out, hope Phyrexia All Will Be One meets your standards. And
it's a hot set. Everybody should go check it out. I think they did a great job. I do positive criticism too, and my criticism of the new set Phyrexia All Will Be One is it's a slam dunk. It looks like so much fun. So many good cards for Commander, Constructed, Modern, and Draft. Go down to your local game store, get a draft in.
There it is. Professor, good luck with everything. Hope you can open a tabernacle like you did in that one booster box game. I could not believe that. And I look forward to everything you do in the future. Thanks, bud.
Cheers, my friend.
Coming up after the break, we'll answer one simple question. What is Magic the Gathering? And how do you play it? Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheese Steaks and Controllers, episode number 126. Thank you once again to the Professor Brian from Tolarian Community College, one of the most successful, in fact, might be the most successful Magic the Gathering YouTube channel on the internet right now. Just hit 800,000 subscribers, and the race is on to 1 million. If you liked what he had to say, check out his videos. If you liked his videos, subscribe and get him to be the first 1 million subscriber channel for Magic the Gathering. He deserves it. His content deserves it. And if you are interested in Magic at all, I would think that you are already subscribed. So let's move on from that to our next segment of the show, which some of you may be asking yourself, what the heck is Magic the Gathering anyway? So, Magic the Gathering obviously is a card game with multiple different formats. When a game's been out for 30, 31 years, it's bound to grow and change from year 1 to year 30. And we'll go over all the different formats first. But at first I want to go over a core mechanics. Like, what are you doing in this game when you sit down with a deck of cards and you start to play? So basically, the main gist is you start with a card of 7 hands. And there are a few different card types that you'll be using throughout the match. So you'll have creature cards, which are your soldiers, your monsters. You'll summon them and then do damage to your opponents with those. You'll have instant spells, which can be cast at any time and allow you to get some sort of benefit to yourself or detriment to your opponent. Sorceries, which are also spells, but they can only be played during your turn. Enchantments, which stay on the board and offer a constant power for as long as it's on the board, and again can only be summoned during your turn. Artifacts, which are like items that can be activated for certain abilities, like there's some that will give you extra resources, there's some that will buff your creatures, stuff like that. I know I'm forgetting instant, sorcery, creature, enchantment, artifact. Planeswalker, which is a special sort of creature that has moves based on counters. That's a little more into the weeds. We're not doing that right now. We're just talking about the different types of cards that there are. Now, those are the types of the card types, like what you'll be playing and how you'll be playing them. There's also 5 different colors to think about, each one with its own sort of strategy or overall thought process when you're going into a game. Obviously, these can be mixed and matched as well. You're not beholden to one color in your deck, but you can, like, there are red-white decks, there are black-blue decks, and stuff like that. But the core essence of the 5 colors is pretty simple. So red is all about aggravation, about aggression, being as in your face as possible, doing damage early and often. They call it aggro. There's also burn and haste decks where all of the creatures that you summon can attack immediately as opposed to waiting a turn, which is the normal rule. And then you'll have spells that just instantly do damage to your opponent. So they're all about winning as fast as possible by any means necessary. Blue is more controlled. They're more about controlling the space both on their side and the opponent's side, forcing their opponent to draw cards right into their discard pile, which is called their graveyard in this game. Basically chipping away at their deck or library, as it's called in this game, until there is nothing left. White is about gaining more life. Each player starts with 20 life, and the first one to get up to 0 obviously loses, but white allows you to gain life, and as you're doing that, fill your board with creatures so that you can have armies that attack all at once. Black is all about harming oneself for benefits throughout the game. It's an interesting scenario. Like there's one card where when you play it, you have to pay 2 of your 20 life, but you can draw 2 cards. And card draw in any format of Magic is gigantic. The more cards you have access to, the better chance you have of getting the combos you want out, the strategies you want to employ, and winning games that you want to win. And then finally, green, that's the 5th color. That's all about getting huge creatures out and just running over people with mechanics like trample or even reach, which can reach the high-flying enemies that normally can't be blocked by those without flying. Again, that's getting into the more core mechanics. I'm just trying to do a brief overview here for you because explaining the game nuance by nuance would take 12 hours, and I only have 1. So, and not even 1. I have 1 segment. So I'm going to try to do the best I can here. So the things you need to know are colors, which we just went over, white, red, blue, black, and green. There are colorless cards as well where you can cast them with mana of any color. Artifacts usually fall in that category. And then there are multicolored cards, which have to be summoned with multiple types of mana. Now you get mana through land cards. These are your basic resource. Your deck is going to be comprised of them more than anything else. You play a land down and then you turn it sideways, which is called tapping it, and that gives you 1 mana of the color designated on the land. Now some lands can do 2 colors or 3 colors. You just have to choose one every time you tap it. Some do multiple amounts of 1 mana or colorless mana or mana of your choice, whatever. But that depends on the lands that you're running in your specific deck. But you lay the lands, and that gives you the resources to play the rest of your spells. And from there, it's whoever can knock the other opponent out first, whether it's through life loss or if you can't draw a card, you're done, or there's multiple different win conditions. There are cards that flat out say, if this, you win the game. So there's a lot of cards to choose from depending on the format that you're running. So that's the basic gist of the game. So your job is to get enough resource or mana to play the spells that you want to win the game as fast as you can. Some colors like to extend the game, like green, and ramp up as much mana as they can. Some colors like red just want to finish it as soon as possible, and that's where the dichotomy, the rock, paper, scissors comes in. So as while red has a lot of quick spells, blue has a lot of counters, so they can counter those red spells. So red and blue are enemy colors. As far as formats go, there are a couple of different formats now that are more popular than the others, and there's the ones that I'm going to stick with for this segment. Obviously, there are hundreds of different ways to play depending on your group, but here I'm going to talk about like the 4 or 5 that you'll be most likely to see if you were to walk into MagicCon this weekend and check out some games. The first one is the one that got me back into the game after 2 failed stints of being a Magic player. The first one was in high school, 2004, 2005. The second one was a couple years later in college, 07, 08 era, and then I completely fell out until recently when my friends showed me a place that I could go play once a week, and then it started from there, and now I covered it on MMORPG. I opened a box and I talked about my first pre-release event, so all cool stuff there. But let's talk about these formats. The first one, the one that got me back in, is called Commander. Now, this is a interesting format in that you have 99 cards in your main deck, and then card 100 is a special card that you set aside called your Commander. It has to be a creature that says legendary creature on the card, so it has to have like a specific name, or just say legendary artifact creature or creature, what have you. And that sits next to your library in what's called the command zone. When they're not in play, they sit there. Once you have the mana to summon them, you can summon them onto the field at any time. If they are then sacrificed or destroyed or taken out of the game, they go back into the zone. And the next time you want to summon them, they cost 2 extra mana. That's the give and take here. You're not just bringing in your commander as much as you want. Every time you do so, you run the risk of having to resummon it for more expensive mana, more expensive cost, which is interesting. But also the 99 in the full library, the 99 cards, outside of basic lands, you cannot play more than 1 copy of a card. This is where things get really, really interesting because 1 copy of a card means, say you're playing 35 lands in your 99, or 33, 1/3 are lands. That means you have 66 different cards you have to fill that deck with that fit into the theme of the commander that you've chosen. You also have access to the entirety of Magic's library of cards, with the exception of some banned and restricted cards. That's 31 years worth of cards to get into. So there are cards that were absolute poop back in the time where they launched, where they first came out, and now are some of the most expensive cards to purchase singles of, because Commander has made them amazing. Force of Will is a blue color where you can counter a spell by paying 1 life and discarding a card instead of paying the mana cost, which I believe is 3 of any color plus 2 that have to be blue. But that smaller cost makes it perfect for Commander. You might say, well, paying life doesn't help, but in Commander you have double the life, 40 instead of 20, because you have 100 cards. Also, most of the time, Commander is multiplayer. 4, 3, 5, 6, sometimes players in one match, as opposed to one-on-one. All of these reasons are why I thought it was the most interesting way to get back into the game. There's a lot more deck strategy. There's a lot more options. Sometimes can be overwhelming. But that right there is why I really got into Magic once again. My Commander deck features one of these special cards from the Walking Dead Secret Lair that came out a couple of years ago, where they released special Magic cards with special mechanics based on characters from The Walking Dead. Mine is Negan, which is really, really cool. And then I have a second deck that is all about vampires, and my commander's named Olivia because that's my daughter's name, and I'm a big sap. Anyway, so now let's get into some other formats that you'll definitely see at the show. One is Standard. That's just a normal 60-card deck, up to 4 copies of a card in the deck, plus 15 cards in what's called a sideboard, where if you watch someone play and get their strategy down, you can replace cards that are in your deck that won't help you against that other opponent and put in cards from your sideboard. But the thing about Standard is the oldest sets, it's a rotating format, so you can only use cards from more current sets. There are now 7 sets that are available in Standard at the moment, and every fall, when the set that comes out in the fall comes out, the 4 oldest sets in Standard leave. So this fall, you'll see the 2 Innistrad, Kamigawa, and Streets of New Capenna take a hike. It's interesting. Keeps you on your toes every year. You're constantly building to stand up to keep up with the Standard format. Plus, Standard is what the Pro Tour that's coming back is going to be played in, I believe. So that's like the most competitive of the different formats. But a lot of fun to play, and it's the best way to see where the most current cards are in terms of power or effectiveness and things like that. You then have Pioneer, which is the same thing as Standard, only the sets don't phase out. They rotate. They don't rotate out. So anything from the most recent set, Phyrexia, all will be 1, all the way down to Return to Ravnica, which I believe launched in 2015, I want to say, or 2012, sorry. We're talking about 10 years worth of cards in this format. So it's a way to make it more varied, than Standard, but also not quite as deep as the next one we'll talk about, Modern, which goes even further back. Again, the rules are the same, 60 cards, 4 copies of each, 15 cards in your sideboard, lands have no restriction, and this goes all the way back to Return to Ravnica from 2012. The next one is Modern, which is the one that goes even further back. Rules are the same, 60 cards, 4 per copy, what have you. But this one goes all the way back to the set called Mirrodin, which came out, I want to say, in 2003. I was in high school when Mirrodin came out, and Modern lets you play all the way to back then. So if you've been collecting since 2003, every card you own, if you still own them all, is eligible in this format. That's pretty crazy. That's a deep pool of cards for the quote unquote normal way to play, and it's why it's a very popular format for those that play it. Pioneer and Modern, I guess, are more popular with age groups who started with cards. You know what I'm saying? So if you started collecting when I was a senior in high school in 2005, Modern might be more your jam. Whereas Pioneer, if you were a couple years later in 2012 or 2013, you might stay in Pioneer. Or Commander, you play everything. Standard is just the current stuff, whatever you like to do. Most people who play Magic or have played Magic for a long time have multiple decks in all of it. So those are the most standard or normal ways to play. These next ones are a little more difficult to break into for obvious reasons. So I'm going to start with Legacy and Vintage. So Legacy is, you can use anything from all Magic sets. It's like Modern, it's like Pioneer, but it's everything. Every single set from Arabian Nights and Alpha and Beta and Unlimited all the way to the new set are eligible in Legacy. This is the hardest one to build a 60-card deck for just because of the vast wealth of cards that you have. Again, 4 copies per, but This is where the old heads play. This is where the legacy players play. So that's one that you may see at the show, but not as prevalent. Same with vintage. Vintage is also every single set that's ever come out, but the interesting thing here is that there's also a restricted list, where as opposed to having 4 cards in a set, you can only have 1 in a deck. Excuse me. And it does not allow your combined deck and sideboard to contain more of 4 of any individual card. So if you have 4 cards in your 4 copies of a card in your deck, you can't put it in your sideboard, but you can split them 2 and 2, which is interesting too. Vintage is the one I know the least about, but I know that it's there. And then the last 2 are where things get a little weird. So last 3, excuse me. So there's Pauper, which is a fun format where you build a 60-card deck and you play the normal way, but every card in the deck has to be a common rarity. It cannot be uncommon, rare, mythic, none of that. Just common. I love that idea. It's the easiest barrier of entry to the game, to the core way to play the game. It's also not restricted to any sets, so all the Magic the Gathering's commons are available. So if you have older cards, you could build a Pauper deck and play. If you only have newer cards, you could build a Pauper deck and play. If you've been collecting your entire life, then you have access to all those cards. Very cool format, a very good entry point, and a good way to teach the basics of the game while still having a competitive scene based on the best cards that are in common right now. And then finally, we're going to get into the 2 methods of play that require you having no knowledge of the cards that you're playing with before you start playing. Now, it may sound silly to you, but this does exist in the world of Magic the Gathering. The first one is called a sealed deck, sealed tournament, where you go in, you pay a fee, and you are given a pre-release box of 6 packs plus a promo, and you have to build a 40-card deck based on whatever's in those packs. So you open the packs, you lay the cards out, you pick and choose exactly which you're going to use, you tell the location holding the tournament what lands you need, and they'll give them to you. That's pretty cool. And then you're off. You're off to the races. May the best man or woman or person win. I liked this a lot. This is how the pre-release went to, that I wrote about at MMORPG.com. It was a sealed event. I liked the on-the-fly sort of strategy element of it. I liked being able to not know what I'm going to be up against, let alone what I'm going to employ in that particular matchup, because everybody, keeps the cards they pulled to themselves, as you would imagine. But it was a fun format, and definitely one I would like to try again in the future, simply for the unpredictability of it. You don't know what's going to happen till you get in there, and then all bets are off. Similarly, another format is called Booster Draft. So there is another format similar to Sealed, but instead of you getting all your packs and laying your cards out, here a set of booster packs, depending on the amount of people in the format, are laid out. Each person picks up a pack, takes 1 card out of it, and passes the pack to the next person until they have enough cards to build a 40-card deck with lands lands will then be provided as they are in Sealed. So this is more of a luck of the draw sort of thing, even more so than Sealed. In Sealed, you get access to everything you open up. Here, you're going to open up a pack, and you're going to have a choice to make. Or do you want the most powerful card that may not fit into your deck as well as you want it to? Or do you want one that might be a common or uncommon, but slots in perfectly? I love this idea. I have never done a draft yet. Drafting is not something I've done yet. I would love to check that out. But the fact that this sort of format exists is really, really cool. Maybe I can get into some draft shenanigans at the show this weekend, because they will be there if you look at the schedule on the official MagicCon website. So that is the basics, the very basics of Magic the Gathering. If you're showing up this weekend and you haven't played in a while, or if you've never played before, if you're a parent bringing a child, or a boyfriend or girlfriend accompanying your partner to the show, and you've never played before, everybody there will be willing to teach you. I have noticed that this community so far has been very forthcoming in willingness to teach and willingness to make sure that everybody's having a good time. So there will be a lot of that happening this weekend. And after the break, we'll get into exactly the things that you should be looking for at the show this weekend, including panels, tournaments, and things like that. So stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 126, the MagicCon 2023 Philadelphia episode. MagicCon 2023 happening at the Pennsylvania Convention Center, surrounded by Magic the Gathering fans. You'll be playing games, checking out panels, stuff like that, all throughout the weekend. But you may be asking, what is going to be happening this weekend? And that's where I will fill you in right now. We're going to talk about all the different panels that you'll be able to watch during the show. You'll be able to talk about all the different games that you'll be getting into, a couple of other exhibits that are happening around the convention center that you might be interested in, especially if you're not a fan of the card game itself, but you want to see other things that are happening alongside the convention. There is a lot to do. There is a full slate of panels throughout the weekend, plus some other cool things happening. So let's get right into it with the panels on Friday. So starting Friday, the very first panel at noon is called All Will Be Art. That is going to go into the artistry and the card pick, like the drawings and everything that are on the cards of the brand new set, Phyrexia All Be One, chatting with not only the artists, but the people who build the world inside Magic the Gathering, so we can get that image on those cards and they can convey what they want to convey. Very cool panel there right at noon on Friday. Next, we have, right after that at 1:30, is one called Phyrexian Philology, oh boy, in Philly. And this is basically a panel that will teach you the language of the Phyrexians, which are like the evil force of the game. They're going to talk about the symbols, the sounds, the culture, and you'll be in the company of leading linguists, according to the website, who will teach and who will explain the reasonings behind what's going on here. That is a fascinating panel that I wish I could be there for, but I unfortunately have to leave Friday a little early. I won't be able to make that one. Also cool, Friday, 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock, one of the biggest YouTube channels outside of Tolarian Community College is called Game Nights, where they play Commander games. They have all kinds of cool special guests and things like that. So they're having a 4-hour live event on the main stage starting at 3 o'clock. Hosts Jimmy Wong and Josh Lee Kwai will be there. There will be special guests playing the games with them. They started this at the Magic 30 convention in Las Vegas last year, and they're picking up from there. Not sure what kind of shenanigans are going to happen at this thing, but 4 hours of Commander and other such Magic games will be happening on the main stage Friday, starting at 3 o'clock. Moving into Saturday now, and this is one of the two panels I'm the most excited about. It's called I've Got a Secret Lair. So secret lairs are special groups of cards that are sold on a special website it's a secretlair.mtg.com or secretlair.wizards, something like that. And these are either pre-existing cards that have new artwork or something new about them, or the special one-off cards that I mentioned earlier, like The Walking Dead. Street Fighter had one. Stranger Things had one. Fortnite had a set, but they were pre-existing cards that were adapted into Fortnite. There's also like special artists, like Junji Ito, the famous manga artist, did some cards for a set, which is pretty cool. This panel at the show, 12 o'clock on Saturday, will talk about reveals, previews, insight, and art from the secret lairs, which is pretty awesome. So I'm excited to see what's going on there. I hope there are some really cool new secret lairs coming out. I personally like the secret lairs, as I talked about with the professor in the beginning of the segment. So I'm very much looking forward to what they present here. I don't know if they're going to be pulling in more outward IP. I know they've already announced stuff like Doctor Who and Lord of the Rings, but I think they're getting their own sets. I don't think it's a secret lair, but we will see at this panel. Next panel on Saturday is Kitchen Table Magic, the past, present, and future of Cube, which is a format that I am not very familiar with, so I may stop into that panel just to see what the heck's going on with it. But that'll be a cool one for people who like Cube or people who want to learn more about Cube. Next one, 3 o'clock on Saturday, is Magic Words Games Show. This panel brings you Magic games and shows. So it's basically like a game show centered around Magic the Gathering, it sounds like. That could be fun. Cosplay contest, Saturday at 4:30. Cosplay is always cool. 3 different categories: novice, journeyman, and masters. So we'll be able to see these really cool costumes brought to life. 4:30 on Saturday. Then Sunday we have 2 pretty big panels back to back, one at 12, one at 1:30, and they cover the next set coming out in April, March of the Machine. So the first one is hosted by folks from the longest running story podcast in Magic called the Vorthos Cast, which will talk about the last few years of the background story to this game, and then talk about how it leads to March of the Machine. And then after that, we'll have our first look at the new set, whether it's new cards, new mechanics. They haven't said anything, but that'll be happening Sunday at 1:30 at the main stage, which is really cool. And then finally, the top 8 of the Pro Tour will be streaming live from the main stage starting at 2:30. I believe this is Pioneer is what Pro Tour is in. I think I said Standard in the last segment, but it's actually Pioneer that they'll be playing. And the total prize pool is $500,000. Not sure how that's distributed yet, but that's a ton of cheese for whoever can win the Pioneer event here, the top 8 Pro Tour here at MagicCon. That's pretty cool. So then we're going to talk about the tournament schedule and on-demand events. These are ways to play Magic at MagicCon. There's 4-player Commander pods where you can reserve a pod for you and your friends to play a game of Commander. There are round-robin Swiss areas where you can play Standard, Pioneer, Modern, or Legacy. There will be drafts for both Phyrexia All Will Be One, the new set, or some mystery boosters, which are like mystery convention boosters that have cards from all across the different sets. They don't tell you what's in there until you get there. Then they'll also have modern stuff, Pioneer stuff. They'll have, I believe there are constructed or sealed for Dominaria Remastered as well. There are secret lair showdown qualifiers. There are a ton of different things going on that you can play. One tournament's already sold out. That's a Pioneer sealed, where you get 1 pack from each set that's in Pioneer, 43 packs total. Open them up and build your best deck. That, I'm surprised, is sold out considering the price tag to get into it, but hey, to each their own. But yes, there will be Dominaria Remastered sealed. There'll be Phyrexia sealed. There will be all sorts of different cool tournaments that you can check out all across the tournament, all throughout the weekend. And that schedule is on the website for MagicCon Philadelphia, which is mcphiladelphia.mtgfestivals.com. Everything is listed there. If there's a specific tournament you want to play in, that's where you would look for that. But also, there's an interesting thing happening off to the side of the convention. If you're heading out there and you want to check it out, it's something that you can do. It's right around the corner from the convention center, literally a 1-minute walk from the convention center at a place called the Center for Architecture and Design. And that is a art show. It's a running art show throughout the weekend, starting noon to 5 every single day. Admission is free with your MagicCon badge. Friday, it's all concept art for Phyrexians, so those cool alternate art cards that you can find in Phyrexia All Will Be One will likely feature at the first day. The second day will be all Secret Lair art, and there is some really cool Secret Lair art, so I'm excited to see what they have posted there. And then Sunday is Phyrexian art, so the actual cards of Phyrexia OB1 will be featured there as opposed to the concept art on Friday. So a lot of very cool thing to check out there. Also, if you're heading on down there and looking for things to do, MagicCon Philadelphia has its own iPhone and Android app, so you can download that, and that'll help you through the convention. I believe there'll be a map of the convention center on there, plus all the different schedules and things like that. And then finally, I do want to stress this, if you're going to it, this is a masked event. Masks are required inside the convention hall. They're just trying to play it safe. There is something else going on at the convention center, apparently, where they may or may not be requiring masks. So if you go down there and you see folks not wearing masks and you're like, hey, why aren't they wearing masks? They might not even be with the convention. So just be nice about it. But yes, there is plenty of things to do at MagicCon Philadelphia this weekend. I am very, very excited for it. As for what I'll be doing, I'll be covering the event for a couple of websites. I have 3 articles already lined up, one around the Secret Lair panel, one around the March the Machines panel, and one around the cosplay of the show. So look for those. I'll be posting those on my social media, Big Man Finelli. Otherwise, I'll be looking for Commander games. I'll have both of my Commander decks with me. I may build a quick standard deck from the samples of Phyrexia OB1 that I was fortunate enough to receive to cover for MMORPG. The unboxing that I did was part of the samples that I received. Very cool stuff there. I may, if I have time, throw together a third Commander deck. Why not? I mean, I know Negan, I know Olivia, but there are a couple other cards in my collection that I would like to experiment with. Let's see if I can do that. Otherwise, though, I'm just looking to have a fun weekend, talking to people, covering these events, doing the thing, and seeing if I can't get a couple games in while I'm there, having a good time. If you're going, I suggest you check out the Commander pods, see if you can get in there just to learn Commander. I hear there's something happening called like Layers of the Planeswalkers, which will have different areas of the floor that are designated to the different most famous planeswalkers in the story. I imagine Liliana will be there. I imagine Chandra will be there. I imagine a lot of the planeswalkers who are in the new set, so Kaya, Tyvar, things like that. They will be there. If nothing else, it's a good opportunity to get brushed up on the story of Magic the Gathering, so you know what the heck is going on in these things. Because you might not know that there is a nice, rich narrative happening underneath the surface. But if you look at some of the cards that you may open while you're there, you'll see that underneath where it credits the artist, it'll say Story Spotlights. There's one card that I'm looking for my Negan deck from the Brothers War. It's called Portal to Phyrexia. And that was basically a teaser for this next set, Phyrexia All Will Be One, because it talks about the portal to Phyrexia opening, and it shows that happening. And it says Story Spotlight on the bottom of the card. So if you want to learn more about the lore and the overarching story of Magic the Gathering, there's that panel we talked about on Sunday, and then I'm likely going to be other areas throughout the show floor that will give you that sort of background information. And along with that, there will also be plenty of exhibitors and vendors giving out stuff from, selling things and maybe having contests of their own. A couple of ones that I would like to highlight. Beetle and Grimm's apparently have very cool like playmats and deck sleeves and stuff like that. I've never seen their stuff, but my play group raves about them. There will be a booth for Alternate Universes LLC. That is a chain of family-owned stores specializing in card games, board games, and stuff like that. That is the local game store that I play at. So check out Alternate Universes' booth while you're there and support those guys. They're good guys. Black Girls Code, which is a great charity or organization that helps build pathways for women of color to embrace tech. Love that. Love seeing that there. Check them out as well. And the vendor list goes on and on here. Very, very cool stuff from across not only Magic the Gathering, but local game stores coming in and having a place to give themselves some visibility in front of the full Magic community. Very, very cool stuff. So MagicCon Philadelphia 2023, like I said, happening this very weekend down there at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. I believe tickets are still available on the website if it's something you're interested in doing. Again, whether you've never played Magic before, whether you have played it before and fell out, whether you're still playing now, there is plenty of things to do and people to talk to while you're there. And it should be a very, very good time of cards and fun. So check it out. If you're down in the city, check out that art show, check out all of it, and see why Magic the Gathering has been able to live and endure for 31 years, even if I've only been involved with it for like 3 of them. But that is the end of episode 126 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented as always by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. My name is Jason Finelli, and I am the gaming expert here at Fox PHL The Gambler. Video games, competitive games, card games, you name it, I have some sort of knowledge of it, and if I don't, then I will, because I try and keep abreast of everything that there is and present it to you right here on my humble podcast. As I say every single week, if you're listening to these specific words, it means you made it to the end of the show, and I am forever grateful to you for doing so. I hope you come back and listen to some more. Got some good stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks, although next week is an episode, and then I take a week off for a vacation, but then I'll be back after that, I promise, to talk about the latest and greatest in video games and competitive gaming. We will talk about cards again, too. Pokemon trading card game is there as well. I'm a big proponent of that. I try and talk about everything. So if you like what you hear, stick around. Would love to have you back for more. But if nothing else, I hope you have an incredible weekend. I hope you have an even better week right behind it. And I will be back next week with more of the latest and greatest in video games here on Cheesesteaks and Controllers. Goodbye.